Hey friends, thanks for joining me, Jim Barud, to hear a few insights from leaders who represent our innovation ecosystem. Today's chat is with Tara Thurber, co-founder of Defined Talent and head coach of Future Coach, and Ben Kenyon, a seasoned NBA performance coach, keynote speaker, and the author of the new book, Climb.
I am a leadership coach that works with individuals going through transitional moments in their life. And I'm also the founder of a partnership-driven talent service agency.
Ben?
Yeah, I'm an executive coach. So I work with CEOs, C-suite execs, entrepreneurs that are trying to find clarity and sharpen their focus so that they can actually beat burnout.
Excellent. Okay, so let's go back into history. Tara, tell us about how you got to where you are today. You can go all the way back into, from high school or college, wherever you want to start. Go ahead.
All right. Um, I'm going to just try and make a long story short. I came from British Columbia, Canada. I moved here to the United States, New Jersey, when I was 10 years old with my mom. Um, I was raised in New Jersey. So I went to Montclair State University for graphic design and photography and wanted to become a designer. I had big goals, big dreams. But when graduation came, I was lost. I had nowhere. I had no support. I didn't know what to do. I had gone to career services to ask, where do I find a job? And they looked at me and said, look at the binder. I was like, all right, well, that's not going to work. So got out of school, ended up finding my way into the mortgage industry and got into marketing and advertising. I actually helped a mortgage company build 5 offices up and down the East Coast, doing all of their marketing and advertising. And when that industry kind of crashed, I came crashing down along with it, lost, not knowing again which direction to take. um, Ended up getting into recruiting. I was recruited into recruiting, and I was able to work with creatives. I was meeting individuals, and it was really an inspiring opportunity for me to be able to help. I've always been the person that has been the networker, the connector. And so I fell into it. And as the years went on, I went into bigger recruiting agencies and ended up moving down to the Jersey Shore and went client side. And it was really when I was working in client side, I got into tech recruiting and was really focusing on helping individuals get into roles that were their profession. Um, but I was unhappy. I felt lost. I had just had my second child. I had really hit the ground. I didn't know what I was doing, where I was, who I was, what my purpose was. And I fell into a pretty bad cycle. So as I was trying to pick myself up off the ground, trying to be a brand new mom now of two, the sole financial provider of our household, and trying to find happiness and purpose, I took a step back and I was talking to a life coach. And she actually, funny story, she came to me as a recruiter because she was working in New York and wanted to leave her corporate company to start life coaching. And I was like, go for it. You should do it. And little did I know she was going to turn around and become my life coach and allow me to, and gave me space for me to figure out what I wanted to do. And it hit me so hard in the face that it was life coaching. This was my purpose. And so I went through a program with IPEC, and I went through my own program, so to speak, to really peel back the layers of the onion to find my true core, to get myself through this transitional dark period. And as I graduated from IPEC, I started a coaching business that really focused on working with individuals to help them through the dark times, to help them through those times where they're pivoting or they're in this transitional phase, and allowing them to have a space, a safe space for them to feel that they can learn and grow all over again. And while I was doing that, I was still recruiting. And in my ways of recruiting have always been human to human. I'm an empath, so I'm always bringing that emotion to the table. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know my clients. And that was missing in a lot of the roles I was in. And so what I did is I took the idea of my life coaching and my career coaching and my recruiting, and I had this bigger vision to bring it all together to provide a service not only for companies but for individuals to help them find their true core again, and then be able to find showing up for as 150% their true self, to then find that happiness and that next path that everybody has been looking for. So it kind of brings me full circle to now being able to bring my connections and bring my network and who I am as an empath to the forefront of helping individuals and companies find their true core, to move forward.
That's great. Thank you for that. And we're gonna circle back and talk more about that. But let's talk about Ben's journey now.
Yeah. So, executive coach, like I said, speaker, author. But before this, I was the director of performance for the Philadelphia 76ers for about 4 years. And then before that, I was with the Portland Trail Blazers for about 7. So in the NBA for about 11 total years. So blessed to have worked with the best in the world. I trained the MVP, Joel Embiid, during his MVP year. Worked with Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum, Tyrese Maxey. I can go on with the names of just like high caliber humans. Coaches from Doc Rivers, Terry Stotts, Nick Nurse. And I'll say over the last 11 years, I picked up a lot of great insight on what is necessary to sustain success at the highest of the heights, right? And throughout my tenure in the NBA, I always knew there was a next step, but I was always trying to taste test what that looked like, right? I started a podcast. I actually did executive coaching probably in like year 5, 6. Didn't have the bandwidth to like really move the needle on it, but I was connecting with people in finance, people in healthcare. And so I started to see the ideal person that I could potentially work with that would still align with my sports background. And so fast forward, being where I am now, it completely makes sense, right? Being an executive coach, executive performance coach, right? Being able to actually connect the vision and values that I talk about in Climb, my book, to the data-driven analytics from like Whoop testing or Whoop tracking, and paying attention to sleep, recovery, your training, right? Your nutrition, things that I know for a fact can help move the needle. I love working with the folks that are on their treadmill and they're going pretty much like 25 miles per hour. They're cooking, they're going, but at the same time, they know that this isn't going to be sustainable forever. And so now I get to sit down and help them build a framework that makes a little more sense for this chapter of life,
That's
right?
great.
And that's the biggest thing I think I really want to lean into in this chapter, is saying, um, I don't want to take away your skill set, your talents, but I also want to give you tools that I know will allow you to actually have a little more longevity so you can enjoy, the fruits of your labor.
So we're gonna circle back to that, but I want to talk about, you know, early days, like high
Yeah.
school, college. Where did you grow up?
Yeah. So from Hillside, New Jersey originally. And I I pretty much grew up in Newark, right? So my mom went to Rutgers, or she worked at Rutgers Law downtown Newark, and she kept me in school right next to her. So kindergarten was like a block away from her. My elementary school that I went to, St. Philip's Academy, was about
Wow.
a block and a half away from her. At 13 years old, I ended up going to a boarding school called Blair Academy, prestige school, amazing school. I'm still connected to it to this day. The network, the community is amazing. The head basketball coach, we just had dinner 2 weeks ago. He was out here in Philly giving a talk. And it was, I'll say I'm grateful for my mom setting me up for the big wins, right? I didn't see it. I didn't have that vision of how important it was to be at the schools that I was at when I was younger. But I was able to actually get a lot of the inner city growing up in Hillside, Newark, New Jersey, and then get, the other side of the tracks in the sense of now seeing what honestly the real world kind of looked like, right?
Yeah.
And growing up, a lot of folks would always say to me, like, hey, how do you navigate that, right? An inner city kid that I may have been connected to sees a brochure and they just see a lot of white kids. And I'm like, just FYI, like they're the same person. It's just that they're a different race. And
Yes.
again, you have to be willing to now have that conversation. And I think I've always stayed curious. And so growing up, I'll say my lifestyle has prepared me to be able to kind of walk in different rooms. And so grateful for being from Jersey, Hillside, Newark, going to Blair Academy up in near the Delaware Water Gap, and then eventually going to Adelphi University up in Long Island, New York. And then I went to grad school back at GW, left grad school to go to the University of Florida because it was an opportunity that made complete sense to step into. My head strength coach I worked for at the time, Mark Bearden, actually suggested it. And he was just like, go work and be broke for like a year and then set yourself up for a huge win later on in life. And the fun part was when I went down there to Florida, it was crazy. Slept on the floor. My pops passed away. My grandfather passed away. I had barely any money to do anything. My mom was helping me pay the rent. And Billy Donovan was the head coach at the time. Fast forward, ended up working at GW, took my head strength coach's job because he retired. I needed to actually connect with Billy to get my first NBA job. And so
Oh.
everything came full circle, going back to, Mark Beard saying, hey man, go sleep on the floor, go be a broke intern because it's going to pay off. And it actually did, right? So
Mm.
Billy ended up, when I called him, he said, hey man, what do you need? Because I haven't talked to him in like 5 years since I left the internship. And I was like, man, I need you to validate me and say I've worked with elite level athletes, and you got to talk to the GM directly. And I knew this was God's plan just because he said in 20 minutes, I'm actually going to be sitting down with the GM for the Blazers.
Wow.
Oh, thing. And he's like, yeah, we're about to have breakfast with him right now. I got you. And so
Wow.
back after and coaches me up and tells me all the things that he shared. And I feel like we talked for like an hour just to like give me the pointers on like, you're going to interview, like pretty much don't mess this up. And so went out there that day they offered, and that was the start of that climb for sure.
And what
Wow.
was that job, that first job you got there in Portland?
So I was the strength and conditioning coach with the
Okay.
Blazers, so assistant strength coach. And how it all started was my guy Todd Forcier. He was the head strength coach, and him and I connected because my mentor I worked for at Florida, they were close, and he worked at Kentucky at one point. And when I actually met Todd maybe my first or second year with the Blazers, or excuse me, with GW. This was actually really cool. Every year, Todd would call me up and offer me a job. Like literally, hey, there's an opportunity over here. Actually, the first time I met him, he literally was like, hey, there's a coach that I'm close with that has a job. Would you want it? I'm like, dude, we just met. He's like, dude, we're connected. And I said no, right? Because I just got the GW. I just got my feet, grounded. I'm feeling good. And every year since then, he kept calling. And then eventually he was just like, hey, man, do you have this certification? And I just got it 2 months ago, 2 months before he called. I was like, yeah, I got it. He's like, dude, what is it going to take to get you to come out here to work with me with the Blazers? And, fast forward, Billy, having somebody validate for you for that, caliber of job is very important. And so grateful for Todd just because it was definitely a great party starter to, where I'm at right now.
That's great. I'm glad we went through that because that is a journey.
Yeah.
It is a up
Yeah.
and down journey for sure. So Tara, let's go back to you. Talk to us more about, you know, your approach, right? To coaching and what other things you're working on now.
Absolutely. So my approach with coaching is really tied into energy and how individuals show up energetically. We show up with 7 different levels of energy on any given day. Um, the lower energy is the energy that's tied to the poor me, right? Or the victim energy. And then as we get up higher, you find opportunity. So what I do is I work with individuals to just help them raise awareness, help them to raise awareness in who they are and how they're showing up on a day-to-day basis. Whether I'm using different assessments or allowing them to talk through stressful situations and really be able to uncover any blocks that they're holding on to that's affecting whether it's their mental health or their decision making, but helping them find clarity so that they can respond rather than react to some of life's challenges. In working with clients that way and individuals that way, it allows them to really reframe their mindsets and build a mental resilience that I think a lot of people tend to miss out on nowadays or just don't have the opportunity to reframe their negative self-talk, right? Everybody has that little person in the back of their head that is giving them that negative feedback or telling them that they're not good enough. And I find that a lot of individuals that I'm working with in transition, whether it's young professionals or individuals that are in a role, but they find that they've hit the glass ceiling or they've recently been let go and high executives that have never had to really build a resume before. I'm finding that there's even imposter syndrome there. So being able to just hold space for individuals to dig in, pull the layers of the onion back to find the ability to refocus and reassess where they want their path to go to next. And I do that through the life coaching and career coaching. A lot of it is more recently about ruling your role, and it's ruling your role no matter what your role is, your role as a human, but we all play different roles on a daily basis. So it's helping individuals rule their role and all of the individual roles, but also then from a bigger point of view to rule the role that they feel, or maybe it's the purpose, right? And helping individuals to do that and stand in their own shoes and stand up tall and gain confidence while dealing with everything else that's going on in our lives today. So through that, I'm able to help them uncover and help them find their purpose, help them find different paths that they can take and allow them to show up for themselves in ways that they never thought that they could. So it's being able to shine that light differently for them and allow them to see the different lights. I think that's one of the biggest things is a lot of individuals tend to have blinders on. And so by opening up those blinders for them, they can see so many different options and opportunities that are out there rather than what's just right in front of them. And I think that that's really important as roles are changing and individuals are needing to pivot or wanting to pivot in order to better serve themselves and better serve others. We're also doing a lot of work with young professionals. So we started Future Coach, and Future Coach it's executive coaching at a different level. It's for juniors and seniors, providing them the space that I would provide at a higher level, but just on a different rate, on a different path forward. So by doing that, I'm finding it's become so beneficial for our young professionals that are about to enter the world. And, I bring myself back to my senior year wanting to find a job or find an internship and being told to go look at a binder. And I literally opened the binder and it wasn't anything that had to do with anything that I was doing. And so I'm just trying to eliminate these students, they're going to school. Some of them have goals and have these aspirations and these jobs that they want. But maybe with the way the market is right now too, they're not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So by working with these young professionals, I'm trying to at least say there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And but it's not, you may not see that light yet because it's not a straightforward path. There's lots of turns and lots of twists. So eventually you'll see some light, but just keep going. And it's been amazing to be able to have individuals held accountable too. I feel that the accountability is definitely a strong starting point for a lot of humans that I'm working with nowadays to help be that outside, you're that outside force, right? You've got the unbiased approach to support and help them in a way that their best friends and their families and their loved ones may not be able to help them in the same way. So by providing that space and the accountability partnership, it's a great way to allow individuals to become the better version of themselves.
That's great. That's really great. And especially in this world of uncertainty and technology uh,
Right.
and helicopter parenting and
Right.
everything else,
Yeah.
uh, the prospect of a coach to help them in this big transition, right, is so important. Ben, talk to us about more about your approach as well as your book.
Yeah, for sure. Step one is figuring out what's most important to you right now, right? So with coaching and the book, so I use the framework from the book, right? So foundation, growth, and achievement are the pillars, and what I'm talking about now, that question comes from the core values chapter, right? So I believe, your core values are what's most important to you right now is something that you really have to get aligned with before we make a move. Right. And so a lot of the times folks come to me and they say they've got, their company and they're trying to move the needle on it. They say their family is important. They say their well-being is important. But then we get into the details and we get very granular and look at the calendar, right? All right, well, what are we doing to actually move the needle and pour into that? And a lot of the times it can be a lot of fluff, right? Well, I'm kind of doing this and I'm kind of doing that. It's like, no. Like, let's actually trim the fat. Let's figure out what is actually going to help you move the needle. Because the folks that come to me are very, again, they are doers. They are the most ambitious humans. They've done it. They keep looking back at their track record and saying, all right, I'm getting things done. But for some odd reason, I'm slowing down now and having a little more chaotic moments than expected. And so I always go to what's most important. And then step two is now being able to actually help build out that support system around it, right? So who is around us now from inner circle standpoint, from a friends and family standpoint, from a professional standpoint. So I really advocate for mentors, coaches, sponsors. I really advocate for friends, family, community to be aligned with what's most important right now. If building a family is important, and I look up and I see your friends list, and it's a whole bunch of single people that aren't aligned with who you say you want to be, we need to kind of readjust a couple of things. I'm not saying they're bad people, but for this season of life, if we really want to move the needle, we now need to go connect with humans that are in family situations, are actually trying to build business and a family at the same time. And it's not a forced relationship. They're there, but again, they come because they don't, going back to the blinders, right? They have these blinders on and they don't realize that they've been focused on the old roadmap, right? That roadmap that got them there over the last 10 years is not the same roadmap that's going to get you to the next level. And so another big piece that I throw in there is the vision, right? I always talk about vision statement. Like, what does that look like globally for your life? I know a lot of people talk about the tombstone, right? When it's your day to go, what is it going to say on that tombstone about you, right? Mine is going to be inspiring humanity to strengthen their mind and body, or empowering humanity to strengthen their mind and body, right? That's the overarching thing, right? But it's going to be the same thing for my family, right? My family comes to me now and they're like, dude, I need some energy. What you got for me?
Mhm.
And they know I got them in seconds, to kind of move the needle for them.
Mhm.
Same thing when it comes to business and working with folks is saying, all right, how am I going to help you actually strengthen your mind and body? And the same thing when it comes to my own well-being, right? How am I going to continue to move the needle there? So I start with that. And then from there, we go where they need to actually attack right away. So, throughout the rest of the book, in the growth section, that speaks on like a holistic approach to improving the mind and body. So again, me being the performance coach, I always point back to wellness, fitness, sitting in a sauna, being able to figure out how to reset the mind, reset the
Yeah.
body, breath work, right? Participating in run groups, participating in a run class like a Barry's or something like that, but like figuring out what that setup looks like for you. And a lot of the times travel is integrated, right? So these folks typically they may not have like the NBA travel schedule, but creating a winning routine is very valuable, right? Putting themselves in a situation where I know I'm going to be on the road for the next 2 weeks. Sweet. What does the gym situation look like? Because every time I leave the gym, I'm thriving.
Yeah.
I'm clicking on all cylinders, right? What does the food situation look like, right? Because I talk about nutrition a decent amount where anti-inflammatory foods can actually keep you in the brain fog space, can keep you cloudy. If you need to go out to Seattle to go execute, and then you have to go to Santa Barbara to go meet up with somebody else, and then hit Houston, and then come back home, be with your family and actually be present. If eating certain foods takes you down this bad road and it doesn't allow you to actually get up on time and actually execute, let's see if we can like nip that in the bud, right?
Hmm.
So again, um, it's a holistic approach that I love being able to like point to because there's different spaces that challenge them, right? A lot of the folks that I work with, they're typically challenge driven, right? They love that carrot that's right in front of them, but I try to give them something that's very attainable and easy to rinse and repeat and do again over and over. So I think about it just like laying a foundation brick by brick, just so that, again, when you do fall off the treadmill that's going 25 miles per hour or faster, you have the strength to get back up. But it's getting back up to a framework that now you can pick up and just continue to use versus not having anything at all.
Great. Awesome. And why don't you show that book? We'll put the link in the show notes. But tell us about that book. How did that come together?
Climb. This is a journey, man. This was a long journey. I'm so grateful for my mentor that first sparked the idea of writing the book. One of my mentors, Greg Bell, he's written an amazing book. I can't remember, Watering the Bamboo. Great book. And we were sitting down one day, and he said to me, or I asked him, how do I do a TED Talk? Because he gave a TED Talk before. And he was like, you don't want to do that. And I was like, no, I do want to do it. Like, how do I do it? And so he's like, no, like, go write a book. And then eventually you do a TED Talk because you can speak to people and then you leave the room, but you can now speak to people with the book and you can stay in the room. And that was his whole premise. And his next question was like, how did you land where you are today? Right? How did you land in the NBA? And the first title was called Go Left, right? And I kept saying, I just continue to go left, continue to go left. And fast forward after all the edits and years of traveling from Portland to Philly because I had to actually transition from working with the Blazers to the Sixers. An editor telling me that the first round was just garbage and terrible. So I had to kind of go back to the drawing board and really, I hired a coach. I had a friend that just finished her dissertation with her PhD. I had another friend that was a journalist. We sat down and we like got really focused on how to serve and show up for the ideal reader that I'm writing for. And what we ended up landing on was 3 steps, right? 3 pillars: foundation, growth, and achievement. And my whole mission was to just give 5 cool stories or 5 points of emphasis that I knew would help move the needle for foundation, 5 points of emphasis that I knew would help move the needle for growth, and then the same thing for achievement. And then finally, once we kind of went through 1,000 edits, from formatting edits to just line edits, in 2023, we launched it. And I'm so grateful that the Sixers helped, back it and help me with the media. And Tyrese Maxey interviewed me over at the Fitler Club. And it was really, really good. And with everything coming from my life, my personal life stories of, again, I think I briefly talked about sleeping on the floor, having the moment of my pops passing away, my grandfather passing away, having to push my car through a stoplight because I ran out of gas, right? And understanding what perseverance really looks like, and attaching an actual value to that in the sense of like, I think that's the chapter of like ownership. I think that's a chapter of ownership of just like, here's the situation I'm in right now. Guess what? I can't, like, I have to own this moment, right? This is helping me shape my story. This is going to be something I can now use for the future to potentially inspire and impact somebody, is very valuable. And those stories that I share, um, they're stories of triumph. Again, it's just trying to help people understand that you can see me on a mountaintop right now, right? And hear me like super happy, so blessed. But I had to start at the bottom of the mountain. And this is pretty much where a lot of people start, right? Not everybody gets to just get dropped off with, in a nice helicopter on the top of the mountain. And if you get that opportunity, sweet. That's the one thing I would love to do for my kids is put them in a space to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
But the book, the goal with this is, let's just say you want to climb another mountain that has nothing to do with, it being handed to you. Sweet. Here's the process to get it done. And so again, the stories I share from my life, a couple of athletes that I've worked with, from Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum, they showed up as great leaders. CJ, I talk about him early in the book about just the support team that he had around him early in his career. Um, he broke his foot leaving college and comes back from that injury to get drafted and all that good stuff. And then right before his rookie season started, he broke his foot again, right? So that's like super devastating. And so for him to now have, a great support staff and team, just his girl at the time, which is now his wife, his brother, myself as his performance coach, the rest of our performance staff, everybody that was around him was looking to literally help him achieve, his goals, his dreams. And now we look up, $300 million later, and he's the president of the Players Association. He's doing all these amazing things. And I'm trying to share like, this is what it takes to move the needle if you really want to get it done on your climb. Everybody's is going to be a little different. I talk about it more from his angle in that chapter. But, if we want to talk about the small role I was able to play, it's just saying I have to make sure I double down as a performance coach to give him the right exercises, the right nutritional advice, the right things to now help him move the needle so he can get back on the court.
Yeah.
I just think the whole system, whole systematic approach is what's necessary to really have a person thrive.
That's great. I'm glad you took us through that.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation. We usually like to give quick tips, just one thing. So tell us, one tip for professionals looking to improve their mental health. Tara?
One tip. I would say one tip to improve your mental health is really to connect with your core and align with your mindset, align your mindset with your values.
Great. Ben?
Pause and reflect. Pause and reflect. I think it's very important to take a deep breath, if regardless of where you are in life, you're winning, losing, you're in between, whatever, take a deep breath, pause for a moment, and then reflect on the last 24 hours, your wins, your losses, the roles you played in both of them, and just know that you actually have the opportunity to go through those wins and losses. And the next set of wins and losses are probably going to be way more impactful if you take time to reflect on.
I love that. I love that. And what about for, folks who are looking to get into becoming coaches? Any tips for them, Tara?
I'd say do it. Jump in and bring yourself to the table because I think is whatever you experience as a human to then put out there and help others and as a coach, I think is something that you need to do to become that coach is to share, become vulnerable and allow yourself to be authentic, definitely be authentic and genuine and to give love. I say give love because it comes from another individual that I've spoken to. He says the word love, and it's an acronym for listen, observe, validate, and empower.
I love that. Ben?
I'm going to double down and say, do it, right? Your energy is needed. You
Yeah.
know, I think it's important to look up, and going back to the reflection moment, people are continuing to come to you for something, right? It's your energy, it's your wisdom, it's something like so that's like your sign, right? That's your first step that you have something to offer, folks. And again, you might have to refine it over time, but like just start, right? It doesn't always have to be when it comes to business, it doesn't always have to be the ideal thing, right? The future, right? Allow it to be what it is right now, and just build from there.
Great. Awesome. Now, this has been really wonderful. We usually end our conversations with a saying or a quote or a poem. So, Tara, what would you like to share with us today?
So this was a tough one for me because I've got a lot of quotes. Ever since I was younger, I used to write them, but it kind of came to me a poem that I used to read. I used to have it on a board throughout all the ups and downs and trials and tribulations. And the poem is called Don't Quit, and it's written by a poet, Edgar A. Guest, back in the 1920s. So don't quit. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low but the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is strange with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many failures turn about when we might have won had we stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Success is failure turned inside out. The silver tint of the clouds of doubt. You can never tell how close you are, so stick it out. Sorry, you can never tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when you're hardest hit. It's when things seem worst that you must not quit.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing that. And Ben?
Yeah, this is my favorite psalm, and it means a whole lot to me. So, Psalm 46:10, be still and know I am God. There's two reasons. A, being still allows for your blessing to catch up to you because you might be moving a little too fast, and it also allows you to pause and reflect. Right. So that's one. And then two, this ended up being one of my mom's favorite quotes, never knew it. And I ended up getting it tattooed on my wrist. And so when she told me that, I was just like, oh, you are my mother and we are aligned. And God wants to make sure we both know that. So again, be still and know I am God. Psalm 46:10.
Great. Great one to end. That was great as well. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Tara. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like it, leave a review, and subscribe. See you soon.